Usually do right before the show. Okay, and here we go. What's up, y'all? It is Jay Stokes of the AVIOT podcast. It has been some time since we've done a live. I think it's been 2 weeks, and we still haven't done a podcast episode in some time as well. That I am to blame for that. I definitely will take accountability there. There's a lot of moving parts that's been happening in my life, and it's been difficult to get a good grasp of things. But I'm still working towards it, and I will make sure that we have podcast episodes. We're going into season 5 actually of the AVIOT podcast. So I've decided that with each new year, that's going to be a new season of the AVIOT podcast. There we talk about topics that range from politics to just pop culture. You can have local news stories, just anything that comes to mind that we feel is worth talking about. I will say that news has been flooding a lot lately in terms of politics. We have the president and the Epstein files. You have tragedies that are happening in the United States. You have tragedies that are happening all over the world. You have stand up specials like Dave Chappelle, which I'll get into in a little bit. So there's been a lot of topics, and I'll be honest, I have definitely been overwhelmed. But that is no excuse as somebody who is a media guy and I'm supposed to be talking about different topics in media and creating media. I have to do a better job at managing my time and making sure that I can separate the topics in a certain way so that I can talk about different issues that present themselves. With that being said, this is not an issue, but what has presented itself in this season is Kwanzaa. So, Habari Gani, everyone. And that pretty much means what's up, what's the news. I have been celebrating Kwanzaa officially for the past 2 years with my wife. We have a Kanara and everything. We light the candles and we observe the different principles on each day. So today's principle is Ujima. Ujima specifically means to collective work and responsibility. And on this day, what we strive to do as Black people, members of the African diaspora, is to build and maintain our community together, to make our brothers and sisters problems our problems, and to solve them together. So, how my wife and I celebrate Kwanzaa is we kind of do our own thing. We make of the holiday what we will, and we move in a certain, I guess, light in order to celebrate the holiday in a way that we see fit. So today for Ujima, in order to embody that principle, what we decided to do is we decided to donate money to a Black family that was in need. And I believe that every year going forward, as we celebrate Kwanzaa, when we get into the third day, what we're going to do is we're going to either donate money to Black families in need or donate our time to Black community efforts, try to lend a helping hand. I believe that's truly community building right there. As for the second day, yeah, the second day was Kuji Chagulia. And with that one, that was self determination. What we do on the second day is we create vision boards. So, me and my wife, we have a vision board on our refrigerator that we created. And then in the first day, what we do is we also, that is Umoja. So, that is like unity for the family, the community, the nation, and the race. So, what we do is we just make a list of different ways we're going to increase unity within the Black race, nation, family, and community. So that's what we do there. But I hope everyone's having a good Kwanzaa for those who celebrate it. Now, I know there were other holidays. I know Hanukkah came about. I believe Boxing Day. I don't know too much about that, but I think Boxing Day is something. There's another one too. Was it Diwali? I don't know anything about that. I should educate myself more about that. And then, of course, there is Christmas. So I know Christmas is a very popular holiday. We have a lot of Christians out there. So I hope that everyone had a good holiday break. I'm curious to know what everyone got as presents. I got some nice things as presents. Both my wife, my mother, and my sister, they gifted me some very good things, things that I have been asking for, mostly books. I've been asking for a lot of books because I want to read more. And I think that's very important. So there is that. During the holiday season, and I said I was going to speak on this, what I ended up doing is I ended up watching Dave Chappelle's latest stand up special. So I had issues with that stand up special, not necessarily because of the content, even though I thought the content, some of the content he was talking about was a bit problematic. The Dave Chappelle special to me was very disjointed, and he did a lot more just kind of angry ranting and just trying to say things for shock value as opposed to what I was used to with his other specials, The Closer, and the two specials that he also had when he came back from his long retirement from the Chappelle Show. During that time, I felt that Dave Chappelle, though he was saying jokes that were offensive to a lot of people, I felt that he did a good job of educating, explaining himself, and also following just like this, I guess, this set that made sense to the viewer, to the listener. Now, I made a video and I was speaking about how I took issue with Dave Chappelle's comedy show. I didn't think it was that great, and I believe that his comedy show since The Closer hasn't been all that great. Listen, when I put that on Facebook, I had so many people that were calling me names. They were making fun of my voice. Hey, how you doing, Liberty Vanderground? They were making fun of my voice. They were saying that I don't date black women. They were saying that I am a beta male just because they were challenging my sexual orientation just because I said I didn't particularly like this Dave Chappelle special. I never knew that Dave Chappelle was a litmus test when it came to your sexual orientation, who you date, if you're an alpha or beta male. We shouldn't give Dave Chappelle that much power. We should not give him that much power at all. Dave Chappelle is a regular guy, just like everyone else. He has mastered the gift of comedy, right? He has mastered comedy. That is one of his gifts. And that's cool. But as a comedian, you your career is determined by how the audience feels about the comedy that you're saying. So if you are giving comedy or you're telling a joke and the audience isn't receptive to it, then you got to go back to the drawing board and fix your jokes. I personally thought this special for Dave Chappelle was not great. He threw in, oh, my background's changing. My bad. He threw in I know he threw in at one point a transgender joke, and the transgender joke to me, it just fell flat because he was connecting it to his Saudi Arabia performance, and even that fell flat too because he's saying, "Oh well, Saudi Arabia took the life of a journalist, but the so-called Holy Land they also took the lives of journalists." But I'm just like, two wrongs don't make a right. So I mean, Saudi Arabia, they are responsible for horrible crimes. So I just wasn't feeling it. And saying that, oh, you feel that you can speak more freely over in Saudi Arabia than you can over here. Well, let's look at that. It depends on the types of jokes that you talk about. Because if you're talking about Islam or you're talking about Muslims over there, I guarantee you they probably wouldn't be receptive to it like that. So it's the types of jokes that you're saying. I know he made a joke in this recent special, Dave Chappelle, about Cassie with the whole Diddy trial. And I thought that joke was distasteful and it just didn't make any sense. Yeah, I just didn't like this go around for Dave Chappelle. I think he could have came stronger. And considering the times that we're in, there was so many material that Dave Chappelle could have went with. He could have talked about the Epstein files. I know he was in DC, so maybe he was a little scared. I don't think Dave Chappelle is as brave as people may make him out to be, but he could have talked about the Epstein files. He could have talked about this current presidential administration. He could have. I felt he was running a lot of interference for Diddy because he felt that Diddy saved his life when he, I guess, allegedly tackled Dave's attacker from back when he was performing at the Hollywood Bowl some time ago. So I guess he didn't want to touch on the Diddy thing too much, but there were other topics you could talk. You could talk about Chris Brown, people going to his concerts with his track record. You could talk about Burna Boy. I think there was just so many other topics. You could talk about Aubrey and Kendrick Lamar. You could talk about that whole hip hop beef back in 2024 of last year. You could talk about that. There was so many things that could have been discussed, and I think that Dave Chappelle just missed the ball, especially because he's supposed to be a hip hop head. Hey, how you doing, Boston Manny? How you doing? Dave Chappelle's supposed to be a hip hop head. Why didn't you talk more about hip hop? Like, I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't feeling it. Speaking of comedy, one thing that has been really making me laugh these days, there's been a series of TikTok videos online circulating with this gentleman by the name of Nick Darnell. He's playing the Grinch, his version of the Grinch, over at, I believe, Universal Studios in Los Angeles or California, that area. So I found it so hilarious. Spend a week with Diddy or a day in Death Valley at Record temp. I don't know about Death Valley. I'm not too familiar with that. Can you enlighten me up on Valley? I rather not spend a week with any man. There's no man I would want to spend a week with. No, but the Grinch, Nick Darnell, who plays the Grinch over at Universal Studios over in California. I think he is doing an excellent job. I know he has said that he base is his character off of the Jim Carrey Grinch from the movies. And over the holidays, my wife and I we've been watching a lot of holiday flicks, and the Grinch was one of the holiday films that we revisited this year. And I haven't seen the Grinch in a couple of years, and I must say, Jim Carrey's The Grinch, that was number one, a legendary performance, and that man delivered. Truly, honestly, he really delivered. And Nick Darnell, I think he captures the spirit of Jim Carrey, and he does a good job of entertaining folks. He has his own flavor. I know everyone's laughing with him saying, "What's happening, twin? What's happening, twin?" And then 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So I think that Nick Darnell is doing a great job there. I'm thoroughly entertained by those videos. Every time I see a video with Nick Darnell playing the Grinch, I have to watch it. I have to, and it's nice to have that joy, that joy going on, right? So there is that. Speaking of joy, I've been having a lot of joy watching the WNBA players get ready for the Unrivaled Basketball League. If you have followed this platform, you will know by now that I'm a huge women's basketball fan. I'm a fan of women's basketball. And it's funny because over the break on Christmas Day, I tried watching the NBA, and it just doesn't hit the same like it used to. First off, my team's not doing great, the Philadelphia 76ers. And secondly, I just feel that the way the NBA is played nowadays, people get away with carrying the ball. People get away with traveling, like all these steps. Okay, the NATO show, Death Valley, supposedly the hottest place on earth, 130 degrees. The record. I'll take Death Valley. I'll take Death Valley. Just in regards to your last question, I'll take Death Valley. Nah, nah. Heat doesn't bother me like that because with heat, all you gotta do is just take off clothes. So I'll just walk around shirtless and maybe have some what do you call it? Some loose shorts on. Yeah, I'm gonna take that over Diddy. Yes, I'm taking Death Valley over Diddy. Correct. Yes, I will do that. I told you, I'm not hanging out with a man. Okay, I'm not hanging out with a man. That doesn't entice me. Anyways, as I was saying before, I was watching the NBA games over the Christmas break, and I just wasn't feeling it. I feel like they get away with a lot of carries, traveling, too much three 3-point shooting. I grew up with 90s, early 2000s basketball. Okay, that is what I grew up with. That is what I enjoy. I see there's another commercial going on in the background. Just ignore that. That is what I grew up with, and that is what I enjoy. And I feel that the NBA today, nah. And I saw a clip recently. It's funny. I saw a clip recently of Giannis. Nah, no, 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 no. I don't think the WNBA needs to lower the rim. In fact, there are WNBA players that can dunk. Dominique Malonga can dunk. Kiki Iriafen can dunk. Brittany Griner can dunk. There are WNBA players that can dunk. They're not dunking like NBA players are, and there's more to the game than just dunking. I believe that these women basketball players, they set plays. They, to be honest, I actually follow the women's college basketball league, like those players, more than I do NBA players. And I feel that I connect more with their personalities. Like they're online, they make their TikTok videos. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. I see that commenter. But I just feel that the women's basketball players, they're more personable. I definitely enjoy them a lot more. I enjoy watching their game a lot more. I feel like they play basketball the way it's supposed to be played. Whereas I believe a lot of NBA players, men's basketball players, have lost the plot. In college, they're a little better, but when we get to the NBA, I feel that they are very gifted. They are very athletic, but a lot of them are not fundamentally sound, and a lot of times it just seems like a run and gun. It seems like they're over here just chucking up threes left and right, and that's not a form of basketball that I enjoy. But the Unrivaled Basketball League is coming up for women's WNBA players, And I encourage everyone to check that out. I think they're going to be on TNT, I believe, True TV, and they added 2 new teams to the league. I'm actually going to see Unrivaled live in Philadelphia with my wife when they play in Philly next year. I believe that's gonna be in February. So I can't wait to watch them play. I'm definitely gonna get that on video. And yeah, I think women's basketball, I've been a fan of women's basketball for some time, mostly because I am from Connecticut and I grew up with UConn. So both the men and women were dominating. Well, most of the women were dominating when I was a kid. So one of the first female basketball players that I've seen was Diana Taurasi. I followed her college career. So I've always had respect for women's basketball. Okay. Now it has grown in popularity, I think largely because of Angel Reese when she did the "You Can't See Me," that really was the tipping off point for women's basketball right there. That LSU versus Iowa game, that that was it. There was a big boom in interest for women's basketball after that. But I wish people would do more of their history, learn more about the great players that came before the players that up here now, your faves. I wish people would do more of that. Anyways, speaking of basketball, I want to go back to Christmas Day. I saw that Snoop Dogg had performed at a halftime celebration or a halftime show for the NFL. I don't know why the NFL keeps on trying to put games on Christmas during that holiday break. The NFL, Thanksgiving is for the NFL, Christmas is for the NBA. That is what I understand. I believe that Charles Barkley actually called out the NFL for doing that. And I think he was right in doing so. The NFL games were boring. They were horrible games. And also that halftime performance was terrible. Snoop Dogg is not who he used to be. I believe that a lot of people, especially because of who he aligns himself with, who he associates with, this current presidential administration, a lot of people are not in his corner. People don't care to see Snoop Dogg. I had a problem with him being the only black person in the performance with all them people there. Like, I didn't think that was cool at all. So, and then people I felt were jacking different things that Beyonce did last year during the NFL halftime performance during the Christmas during that holiday season. There were a lot of similar beats to what Beyonce did because they called it the Beyonce Bowl during that halftime performance during NFL's Christmas games. And she did a great job. And I felt like people this year jacked a lot from her style. So there is that. Anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. This show was never meant to be very long today. It was more for me to come back on and me to get reacquainted with the audience out there. It's been 2 weeks since I've done a live, and I definitely have to be better at staying consistent with that. There are things that I want to do going into this week, next week. So we always end the show on what's brewing for the week. So with me, I'm working on this paper. I've been working on this paper for some time, talking about immigration, and I definitely want to finish that off. And then there is another video that I've been working on with Nicki Minaj and her whole. I mean, she keeps adding more and more to the plate. She has aligned herself with Turning Point USA. Then she's saying that Christians are being unfairly treated in Nigeria. And if you actually read up on the situation, that is actually false. So there is a video and a series of videos that I want to do there. I also want to do a video following up on my Dave Chappelle, my comments about that, and how people took issue with my opinion on how I felt about Dave Chappelle's recent comedy special. So I actually wanted to do a video that breaks that down in more detail. So that's what's brewing for me this week. I thank everyone who joined onto this live right here, and I hope to see you next Sunday. And I'll do a better job of just keeping up with the affairs of this platform. So thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Make sure to support our platform, Chemistry Productions, on TikTok, everywhere possible. All right, till next time.